Good morning. I'd like to call the Kankakee County Board meeting for June 9th, 2020 to order. Today's invocation is from Jackie Haas.
Thank you. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Master, grant that I may not seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and all. Do they call that a round when you... We're not doing real well. Okay. Alrighty, under, have nothing under public commentary, no requests.
Can I do a roll call?
But we will do a roll call.
Yeah. Mr. Washington. Mr. Hess.
Present.
Mr. Tholen. Mrs. Polk.
Present.
Mr. Snipes. Mr. Byrne.
Present.
Mr. Seroy.
Present.
Mr. Lear.
Present.
Mrs. Weber.
Present.
Mrs. Peters.
Present.
Mr. Payton.
Present.
Mrs. Parker.
Present.
Ms. Dunbar. Mr. Kinzinger.
I saw it.
Mr. Kinzinger.
He's here.
Present.
Okay. Mr. Fairfield.
Present.
Mr. Zenz. Ms. Haas.
Present.
Mr. Carrico.
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Swanson.
Present.
Ms. Zakulo.
Present.
Mr. Featherling.
Present.
Mr. Donnell.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
He's there.
Mr. Long.
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Present.
Mr. Wheeler.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. No proclamations. The minutes of the last meetings from May 12th and June 2nd, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
I make.
Mrs. Zakulo, second.
Polk.
Mrs. Polk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under Claims Committee reports, first, can I get a motion to approve the Claims Committee report?
Eckhoff.
Cold Eckhoff. And a second was Mr. Payton, I believe.
Yes, sir.
If we get those read in the record.
I don't have anything to read into the record.
Steve sent out the claims. Did we? Right. It's we have to approve the claims. Yeah, we asked about that.
I don't have it.
No, because it wasn't in the packet. We're gonna have we approved the claims in the finance committee meeting. We're gonna, since they're not here, haven't been included in the packet, we're gonna have to bring those back next month for the full board approval. Apologize for the error. So we'll move on. Those claims have been approved in the finance committee meeting, so the bills can be paid. Just a matter of the full board needs to do that. So next month there'll be two list of claims. Moving on to department reports, if we could get those. Wait a minute. Yeah, there's no roll call, there's no motion in the second, so that'll be withdrawn.
The county collector's report for April 2020. Total cash and bank and investments, $877,596.29. The county treasurer's monthly report for April 2020. Total cash and investments, $877,596.29. The coroner's monthly report for April 2020. Total calls, 134. Coroner's cases, 30. Autopsies, 12. Toxicology, 12. 1 donation, 1 fetal, 58 hospice, 45 referral, 74 cremations, 1 outside autopsy, 1 outside x-ray, 4 pending. Income summary report for April 2020 for the coroner, total of $3,911. The circuit clerk cash book for the month ending April 2020, total dispersed $156,994.72. Recorder's monthly report for April 2020, disbursement fees paid to the county treasurer of $115,831.28. County clerk's monthly report for April 2020, total $21,778.08. Animal control monthly report for April 2020, total fees of $26,800.10 in the IPTIP building fund, $217.35. Total animals handled, 80. Monthly building division report for April 2020, 54 total permits for fees of $9,558. Total extra fees of $1,500 for a total of $11,058. The monthly resolution list for June 2020 total to the county $43,670.88.
Need a motion to combine and approve the department reports, please. Mr. Lear, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller with the second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under the consent agenda, is there anything that needs to be removed to be considered separately? Anything that needs to be removed and considered separately? Alrighty then, hearing nothing, I guess I need a motion to combine and approve.
Parker.
Mrs. Parker, Colton, Eckhoff with a second. If we can get those read on the record, please.
The appointment of Brian Stauffenberg to the Manteno Community Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Gene Rademacher to the Grant Park Fire Protection District. The appointment of Gene Rademacher to the Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The appointment of Dave DeYoung as Vice Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the fiscal year 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, SKDO.
Alrighty, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Byrne. Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Ms. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Ms. Zakulo.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion
Okay, let's
carries.
say Mr. Snipes, but it's aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Motion carries. Under planning, zoning, and agriculture, we can get the first item, read in the title, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing the county board chairman to sign an agreement with Hopkins Park for natural gas line project.
To start off with, can I get a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Mr. Miller, a second for Mr. Long. Is there any questions about this? We talked about it in depth in the meeting, the committee meeting. Want to make sure everybody knows what this entails.
Not a question, but a comment.
Yes, Mr. Snipes?
I think this is plausible because giving the fiduciary trust that now has to be placed in the county board to let this project go forward. It's a step in the right direction. It's a long awaited step. So I support the measure wholeheartedly.
All righty, any other questions on this, comments? I'll be a roll call vote then, please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Byrne. Mr. Byrne. Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Ms. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Ms. Aculo.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. The next item, ZBA case 20-01. If we can get the title just right in the record, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois regarding ZBA case number 20-01, variance to section 121-208D, lot width in the I-2 General Industrial District 17, Bourbonnais Township.
All righty, to start with, is there a motion on the floor?
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, who made the original motion, Mr. Featherling?
Yes.
Okay, and then a second was Mr. Kinzinger, I believe?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on this? Dell, I believe you're here somewhere?
I'm here.
So does anybody have any questions on this, or is there any brief overview, Dell, of this from PZA? I know
I can if you'd like to see one.
what's the committee's pleasure?
C1.
I heard a C1. So
Yeah.
you've
right.
you got it, Dell.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you guys.
Easy.
See if
Can you
this
do it?
works. Share. All right, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's a map of the location. This is a large, fairly large parcel up on Commerce Drive in Bourbonnais Township in the Interstate Business Center Industrial Park. Mr. Menz owns the property outlined in blue on the screen there, which has two separate businesses on it. Got the building to the north and the building to the south. He'd like to keep the building to the south in the ground with it and be able to sell off the building to the north. So he's wanting to divide off the area in red. Our ordinance requires 150 of lot width in the industrial district, and the red box, as you can see there, has only 85 feet. So he's asking for a variance to allow that division to occur. Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval, and so did the Planning and Zoning Committee.
Okay.
That's pretty much my presentation there.
Is it a common driveway for both businesses, Dell?
No, each has their own access.
Looks like there's plenty of parking spaces in the back of either one of them.
Yes, those are actually, it's for He's been using it for his towing business. Most of those are towed-in cars, which will only be on the south parcel once this is done.
Thanks, Dell.
Any other questions? I guess there's a motion and a second. This is roll call vote. Yeah, I don't know if that's a roll call vote. It's a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on. The final item under PZA.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing execution and amendment of CARES Act grant agreement.
Is there a motion on this one to start with?
Hess.
Mr. Hess to approve. And a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Aaron?
It's Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith then with a second. Sorry, couldn't hear, kind of broke up. Any questions about this? It's a simple grant amendment, CARES Act, COVID related. All right, that's a voice vote then, unless there's any questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under highways and buildings, basically I need a motion to approve the Grasso Construction bid for section 20-08000-00 GM Supplement 1 in the amount of $34,370.80. That's the only item on the resolution. And is there a motion to that effect?
Careful. Second.
All righty, who was the original? Mr. Carrico with the motion, a second to
Kinzinger.
Mr. Kinzinger. Any questions about that? Otherwise, it'll be a roll call. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mrs. Polk, Mrs. Polk,
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Snipes,
Aye.
Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mrs. Weber, Mrs. Weber,
Aye.
Mrs. Peters,
Aye.
Mr. Payton,
Aye.
Mrs. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger,
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Carrico,
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Zakulo,
Aye.
Mr. Featherling,
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra, Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under other business, some openings to announce or re-announce. The one opening on the following.
74.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's on the next page. Resolution authorizing the county board chairman to sign the road use agreement for the Peterman 2 solar project. Is there a motion on this one?
So move.
Mr. Featherling, second.
Second.
Mr. Snipes, any questions about this? I believe Mark is on in case you have any specifics. Alrighty, that one, we'll do a roll call on that one, please.
Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mrs. Polk,
Aye.
Mr. Snipes,
Aye.
Mr. Byrne, Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mrs. Weber,
Aye.
Mrs. Peters,
Aye.
Mr. Payton,
Aye.
Mrs. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger,
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Carrico,
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Zakulo,
Aye.
Mr. Featherling,
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye, motion carries. Back to those openings, I jumped ahead on. One opening on the Essex Township Fire Protection District, one opening Grant Park Fire Protection District, Kankakee Township Fire Protection District, Pilot Township Fire Protection District, St. Anne Fire Protection District, Mantino number 9 Drainage District, and also one opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals, 3 openings on the Regional Planning Commission, and 1 opening on the Kankakee County Farmland Assessment and Review Committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hess?
the one on the farmland assessment, is that to replace Mr. Burjoyce,
Yes,
who passed away?
yes.
Are we looking for somebody from the eastern part of the county, or does that make any difference?
I don't believe it makes a difference. I'd have to check with Eric on that, but I don't think there's any, it'd be nice to spread everybody around, you know, to have from a different part of the county, but I don't know if there's a requirement, so I can answer that after the meeting, Bones, I'm not sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
I have a couple of suggestions for that then.
okay. Yeah, I'll get with Eric, and then either he'll give you a call or I'll call you back, one of the two.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under old business, I had something real quick from the committee, and then we can go into other old business. The reopening coalition, if we could, yeah, make that full screen. The part of what we were working on in the reopening coalition was to give the governor Kankakee County specific data that kind of described where we're at in terms of his metrics. Some of that language was I don't want to say misinterpreted in our last vote. We weren't, you got to do full screen on that if you could. Yeah. It was misinterpreted as we were telling everybody we were reopening. That is exactly the opposite of what we were doing. We were trying to give the governor information on why we met his metrics. So every couple of weeks we're updating these numbers. The website is just about ready to go live. It'll be nestled within the health department's website. But these are the numbers that we're talking about, and these are the governor's metrics on moving from phase 3 to phase 4. And in this case, the positivity rate is his metric, his bogey, if you will, is that solid green line along the top, and that it must not cross that line. And you see over time where we're at as far as positivity rate. So these graphs and these data metrics, and I really want to thank Phil Cambick at Riverside and Chris Schride over at Amita, Matt McBurney, you know, all the folks over at Olivet, Jason Johnson, some may remember him. He was a board member here, but he's in the finance department at Olivet, along with, you know, everybody over there, Dr. Pickering, Dr. Bowling, that has helped us out with getting this data into a usable and easily visualized format. So our positivity rate continues to go down tremendously as we test more people. So the next slide, you know, that's a key metric. The admissions, you'll see those over time dropping. This is not necessarily a metric that the governor is looking at, but it's a key indicator of where we're at in terms of capacity. That solid line on the bottom, this is a metric that the governor's and IDPH is using. The solid line on the bottom, and you cannot dip below that line as far as available ventilators. And during this whole crisis, we weren't even close to coming towards that. We had plenty of capacity here, and thank goodness we didn't need it. The next slide. The Med-Surg Capacity. Again, the solid line, the number cannot dip below that line, and we were far from that during this entire crisis, which obviously we're still dealing with, but it seems per this data that things may be in a different place. And then ICU available capacity, again, you know, even at the low point, if you will, we still didn't come close to that line. And this is something I got off of the coroner's website this morning. The April and May numbers, you'll see the mortality rate for, you know, those tested versus, you know, positive versus those passing away was, you know, slightly going up in May, obviously, when we had a lot of those large long-term care facility impacts. But when you look at, or excuse me, in April, you look at May and it's going down at a precipitous rate as well. So I definitely just wanted to put these numbers in front of the board, in front of the public. This is the information that we will continually, and we have sent to our lobbyist, our state senator and representative, so they can knock on that door of the governor's office to tell the story that, as we all said, our data is not Cook County's data. It's not Grundy County, it's not Kendall or any of the other, Will County, any other counties that we're in a zone with, if you will. These are our numbers, and we would like to be considered on our own by the way that we are responding to and dealing with COVID, and the way that our public has engaged the process to try to keep themselves and others safe. So that being said, I don't know if there's any questions about the data or what we're doing with it, or the overall goal is and intent of this process. So I just thought I'd put that out to the board, because every 2 weeks these are updated and sent forward, and then we will put them up on the website every 2 weeks as well, along with all of those reopening tools that people need in order to reopen their businesses as things go through the process in a safe manner for them and the public. So, any questions?
Just have one comment, and because I did the nay vote on the last one, and the reason so is because it appeared as if we were almost like chastising the governor versus providing data. I am in support of providing data, especially if data is in positive. I'm a little bit apprehensive of not, when we say that we don't want to be attached to Chicago. There's positive, negative to both. One is, if you are in part of that Chicago region, I believe that it looks like the monies and stuff goes to Chicago and spread abroad. So if we're in that area, or the testing or anything, as far as materials are concerned, dealing with this COVID-19, we would be the recipients of. However, looking at data that suggests that, well, our numbers are not similar to Chicago, and so therefore we're asking that you consider letting us go to phase 4. That's plausible because you have data, and the purpose of doing it is to reinforce your position that, you know, Kankakee is not at an alarming rate as Chicago or Will County would be. And so that, in taking that position as for informational purposes, I have no objection as far as that's concerned.
Is there any other comments about the data? Any of the process, what the entire 50 to 55, maybe 60 people have been doing? Ms. Zakulo, it seems like you might have a question, or someone in your...
No, I don't.
Okay, just just joking. Whose dog was that? No, I'm just kidding.
Wasn't mine.
Okay.
For once.
So I did want to clarify, there is no funding tied to the zones at all. That's each applicant on grants is separate than the other, and there is no advantage to being in the zone. There's only detriments. So I just wanted to clarify that for the group, but I do appreciate the comment. Is there any other thoughts on this? Any other, then I'll move on to any other old business. I'm sorry, Mrs. Haas, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks for getting that data together. I think that's really helpful for us to, you know, take our stance and position for moving forward and helping get the economy and business back going. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Smith, I believe.
Have you had any response through our paid lobbyists or anybody in the governor's?
I have had no response from either Representative Parkhurst, from Senator Joyce, or our lobbyist on any positive response that the governor is considering doing anything. So they've committed to be bringing this back every 2 weeks and reminding him of the fact that we are in a different place and that we are still requesting this continually over and over again.
Running out the clock then.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Mr. Smith.
I said he's just running out the clock then to stick to his plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Snipes.
Are we up in a new business?
Yeah, we can go to old business. Any more old business? Anyone? New business then. Yes.
Okay, that just FYI for all of us on the county board, I would that you pray for George Washington after he attended his wife's homegoing celebration. Somehow he caught COVID and we almost kind of lost him, but he is now responding. As of yesterday, his eyes are looking around, whereas before he was not, more comatose. So continue to keep him in your prayers as he battles this this COVID-19 issue.
Thank you.
Will do.
Absolutely.
So any other new business for the group? Alrighty then, I need a motion. Would that be
Mr. Hess makes the motion to close.
This is Peter, second.
all right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Have a good